Hello everyone, so in this video, let's talk about how you can write down validations for your Go program. There are a lot of online libraries that can help you to write down validations, but this is one of the good libraries that I've seen a lot, and that is the Ozzo validation library for Golang. Now it has a lot of 3.6k stars as well. So we'll go through the documentation of how you can write down validations through this library in this code in this video. So let's start without. We'll go to the README section. So as you can see, ozzo validation is a Go package that provides a configurable and extensible data validations capabilities. It has the following features. We'll go through all the features in this particular thing. You have to have Golang 1.13 version and above. So how you can get started? You can do go get and this like this particular GitHub link, and then you can get the can say all the packages installed. Now let's write down a simple validation value. So this is a very simple example. So let's take this out, copy this whole thing, go to our GitHub, our copy paste it here. Now I have already done the go get command, which is this command. So you just have to first do this command and then write down this particular first simple program in just make a main.go file and just put it there. Now let's go through what it is doing. What you can see here is that if I just do the thing, this is an example data. Let's say whatever data you have to validate that. So you have imported this validations. So validations.validate, that is the function provided by this ozzo-validate library, that is validate. You provide in the data, and then you can give out some sort of arguments upon which you want to do the validation upon. You want to make this field required. It has to have a length of 5 to 100 and it should be a URL. Okay, you provided this and it will validate upon all these particular fields and give you the particular answer. If there is some error, the error will be like fetched in this particular variable and printed out here. Okay, so let's check it out. What we'll do is that we just run this. It's just go run this main.go. So I can actually just run it from here. And what you can see here is that it just gives you this error that it should be a valid URL, because it's not a valid URL. It is getting an error from here and it is printing out. It must be a valid URL. Let's say I just put down www.google.com. And now if I run it, it returns nil, which means that now this particular thing is valid because it is not empty. It's like because it's a required field, so it is not empty, that is fine. This value is a required field. It has to be of a length between 5 to 100, that is also fine, and it should be a URL, that is also fine. So there is no error from here, so answer is okay. That is the particular very simple example of how you can use validations upon your particular input. So let's say I'm making an API call, so you have to have a validations upon your request, or you have some particular data and you want to move forward depending upon some particular constraints are there, then you can write down this particular validation. So let's talk about more things in this library. So you can use this validation.validate to validate a particular, let's say, value. But let's say now you want to validate a struct. Let's say you have a struct like this, that is this address. So let's copy this address out. Let's take this here. Okay, we have some struct. Now you want to create an object like this, instance like this. So I just create it like this. Okay, now what you can see here is now these are the validations for this particular struct. Okay, so it will automatically react it. So I think so it will react it. Yeah, it will react it. And now you want to just validate using this part. So what you can now see, what I have done here is that I have taken this validate function. So initially this validate function is called upon validation, but now I want to do it for a struct. So what you can do is that I can again call this validation.validate struct function because I want to validate the struct. So I've written a function that will take a here, like the address here, and then I want to like validate upon it. So I will validate the struct, and then what I can do is that for all like the fields in that struct, I have different validation logic. that street is to be required and it has to be a length of 5 to 50. This again values is required, city is required, state has to be required, and it should be like regex match, that it has to have two upper letters in uppercase. So this is like a regex match. You can like get your regex done using ChatGPT. Is very simple. But the thing is that if you have a regex, you can directly just match out that whether the input is following a certain pattern. Okay, and then this is the zip, and you can get the zip here. So what you can see is that if I run this out, you can see that the state must be a valid value, like a must be in a valid format, and the street, the length should be 550. The street should be of the length, as you can see, 5 and 50, and it is of length 3, so that is why it is giving an error. And the state, as you can see, must be a valid format. The state must be of 2 letters in uppercase, but our state is like this, that is also invalid. So that is how whenever you get some values, you can validate those values that are actually, instead of writing down if and else conditions and proper error messages, this is the library that you can directly import in one go, and then you can easily validate your all your structs or values, whatever, depending upon the logic here. Okay, it provides a lot of different, like you can write down your custom logics as well. It has a lot of different values as well, so you can use library. Let's move down. So the next thing here is that validating a map similar to a struct. You can validate a map as well. As you can see, let's say I have a map like this and a nested map in map. So what you can say is that initially we have validate struct. Now we have validation.map. So we are now validating a map. The map has a key value pair. So for a key, what is the value? I want to validate a value for a particular key, that it should like follow a certain format. So that is what we have done. That for a name key, the value should be of this type. For the key email, the value should be a proper email, and so what. And for a particular address, all the values, now we have for the address, it is again mapped to a particular map. So for that map, we can again call this validation.map, okay, to validate the keys inside that map and get those. It is a very pretty straightforward thing. You can directly like use this particular examples in your code as well, and that is how you can then print out the answer. Now coming down to validations.error, as you can see here is that the errors that we get here is of the type error. Okay, whatever we returned here, I just get out this error, and this validate function is returning an error. Okay, but now let's say in the output we don't want to put out this error. Let's say either we want to assert something. So okay, let's say we have these errors we want to print out in the actual API response. We don't actually show errors. They are like, you can stringify it, or also what you can say here, what they have done is that you can, like you can say, marshal this out into a JSON object. So this error can be marshaled out into a JSON object with key value pairs as key and value. So it will automatically marshal it out. So you can use this format, whatever error you get. Now you can use like this. If I just do it like this, what we're trying to do is that we use a JSON.marshal, again JSON library will be automatically imported here. Okay, then what we can do is that we take this error, then marshal it out, whatever the value is, then stringify it, and then print out. So this is actually marshalling out, it just returns a JSON. This actually stringify the JSON so that we can easily see it. And if I remove this, now if I just run this particular program again, this is the first error. Now again, as you can see, that error now becomes the same error, but now it's a proper, more readable thing, that the state must be a valid format, street, the length must be 5 and 50, and this is actually a JSON format that is returned, that you can also use. And then like you can also print it out, whatever you format. It's just stringifying it so that it becomes easy to read here, but this returns a JSON, okay, that you can also use. Now coming down to here, these are not much required. Internal errors are also there. So every code, whenever you're running a particular piece of code, there can be internal errors. Internal errors means that there are some problem with the logic of your particular code. Maybe some null pointers, or maybe there are some edge cases that are missed, but that are not to be considered with validations error, because validation is the input. So the thing is that you have to have, they are also checking that you can put a check that this error is of internal type. So if it's an internal type, then return an internal error, and if it's not internal error, then return the, you can say, the validation error. Okay, then that is the thing. Now you can have these values, you can validate each values like this. We have done is validation.in. If you want to check that the value of gender should be female or male, you can also like use like this. They have a lot of different you can say these particular like interfaces to do all those type of things. Now you have to have, like, you can also create now an array of those particular interface. So let's say I can also show you like this. You have a particular address. Now you can also make an array, okay, like this, addresses of array. And then what you can do is that take this addresses and validate for all values like this. So what I'm trying to do here is that initially I have created only one object out of it, of that particular struct. Now I have an array of addresses and I want to like do it for all the addresses. So now I do again validation not validate, provide in the addresses. Okay, these addresses will provide, and this validation will validate it for all the. So what I'm trying to do is that I have, let's say, taken this validate function only, but now I have like overridden here. Okay, so what I've done is that it will automatically do it for all these addresses, this validate function, because internally what it does is that if it take the interface, it will iterate over all the rules, okay, and run it for all the rules for this particular validate value. Okay, so it is internally iterating over. Instead of that, you can also iterate over each value and do it yourself as well for all the values. You can customly call that particular validate function for all the values, or you can directly like use it like here as well. Okay, so that we can do also. You can also use each validation rule as well. So as you can see that we can use for each validation for each, because it's an array, you can use the each validation so that it will be called for each particular like the value. So you can use that, it's an array. So for each value you can call this that it should be an email. You can use the same each as well here as well. For each address you can do this validation. Okay, it totally depends upon you how you can write down. Either you can write down in this format or you can use the each as well. Then you can use pointers, that is also fine. And you can have conditional validations. So which means that if the, so let's say A has some unit, A is phone, A is like, A is a, let's say an object which is created out of a struct which has unit, phone and email. And now I only want to do you can say validation when the quantity is not equal to null, then only I want units. If email, like this is also when, if email equal to empty, then we want phone number. And if email and if phone number is equal to empty, then we want phone number. So like either of one, if you just want either of one, I just want either phone number or email, you can use this logic that either phone number or email is required. You can also put custom errors on top of it. Okay, let's say this is the errors that we want, but let's say this errors is thrown automatically by these particular validation.validate start. If this is required, this is not, they have some validation values like these error messages, standard error messages. But if you want to override them, you can also override them using this particular thing, that validation.required.error. This is the error that we actually want to throw out. Okay, so that is how you can also use some custom validation errors as well that you want. And this is the customized error message that we have seen above. You can also customize your error message. As you can see, they have customized error message as well, so that you can also do. And you can create your custom rules. As you can see here that we are doing validation.validate, and then you have to just provide that particular value, or whatever struct you have, and then validation by and the function that you will call to do the validations. And validation by will actually have the custom, you can say, custom rule. So you can also write down custom rules as well, whatever you want. You can rule group as well. You can make a rule group as well, which means that you have a group of all the rules that you want. Okay, and then like you can just spread it over this particular value. Okay, so let's say you have some so as you can see that we have some rules. Okay, we have some rules like the validation required. So instead of like writing that again and again, what if there are, let's say, 5 values that have the same validation, what you can do is, instead of writing down again and again, you can make a rule group like this, required and all that you have made, and now this rule will be spread over here, so that this is like just obviously a validation of rules which will be spread here. Okay, that is what it is. And then these are the built-in validation rules, like whatever in, not in, length, all the things that you have seen. Whatever type of validations you want to do, you can use these particular functions. And then it's an email, it's an email format, URL, is it a alpha, digit, whatever different type of validations you can think of, a lot of there are provided by here. Or else you can also make your custom validations. You can use regex, whatever you want. And that is how it's a very good thing to do you can say validations using the ozzo. Okay, so I will love to see your validations, how to use validations by yourself in your particular library. Thank you for watching this video. In the next video, I will be writing down some tests so that we can do testing on these validations as well. A lot of things are there in a Go project. So let's deep dive into one by one, and then we'll also make a complete project as well. But I'm just making simple videos for you to understand every bit one by one, and then we'll merge all of them. Okay, that is the Ozzo validation. If you have more libraries for validation, do comment out in the comment box. I will be happy to see all of them and make a video out of that as well. Thank you for watching the video till the end. I will see you next one. Day coding and bye.